Okay. So in the last session, we discussed about the meaning of fusion. What does it mean by fusion? We discussed fusion is nothing but Oracle acquired many products. From each product, they selected best solution and they built the product called as fusion. Within the fusion, every solution is the best. So that's how Oracle built ultimate product called as fusion applications. So when we talk about cloud, what does it mean by cloud? If any company is going to use Oracle Fusion applications, they may have to buy the server license. They have to take when they need DBA team and security network admin, and they have to take care of the server maintenance. If Oracle is going to come up with the latest releases, they have to upgrade from previous to latest. So instead of taking care of all these activities, what every company can do is they can take Oracle virtual servers. Instead of buying the servers and taking the license, simply they can take the subscription from Oracle. Oracle will provide the virtual server for every company. They can start using the Fusion applications through that virtual server. Since the servers are virtual, those are not going to be placed in specific location. Virtual locations always resides internet as a source. Wherever you have internet, you can feel your servers are available in the internet. So that's how Oracle will keep the servers available with the help of the nearest data centers, whatever available for your organization. So that's how the server access became very, very easy without buying the server infrastructure. You can use Oracle virtual servers and you can use Fusion application for your company, and user experience also will be rich. If server is somewhere, say in US, if you are connecting to that server from India, it takes time to establish the connection to respond from US to India user. It takes some time, but in case of virtual servers, so in your home country, you can have a servers from where you are doing the business. In every country also, Oracle maintains data centers and your server will be supported by those data centers. So this is the meaning of virtual servers. If you are going to use the virtual servers, that we call as cloud, means we are not going to have the applications within our own server. The servers are managed by Oracle. We are going to use Oracle virtual server. Wherever you go, your server will follow you. That is a concept we call as a cloud. Means if you have internet connectivity, you can think your server is available there itself. So that's how we can find the meaning of cloud. If any company is going to use cloud applications, Oracle Fusion cloud applications, so there are different options: SaaS, PaaS, IaaS. So SaaS stands for software as a service, PaaS stands for platform as a service, IaaS stands for infrastructure as a service. So in case of SaaS, we cannot do all kind of customizations. In case of PaaS, yes, you can do any sort of customizations. That's the difference between SaaS and PaaS. And product will remain same. Same product we can see in the SaaS and PaaS, only the additional privilege you can get with a PaaS. That's all about SaaS and PaaS. In case of IaaS, you cannot have any applications inside of it. You can have access to storage space. If you are going to work for any client, you will get access to the instances. By default, you get access to two instances. One is test instance, other one is production. The test instance you can call as test environment or test pod. The same way production instance you can call as prod instance, prod environment, or prod pod. Along with these two instances, if you want to get one more instance from Oracle, yes, you can get, you have to pay for that separately. So that instance you may use for a development purpose. Development purpose means if you are going to create something which is not there in Oracle provided solution, you can create the own solutions with the help of technical consultant. You may create one new report. You may create connection with one application with another applications which are not already connected. That we call as interfaces, integrations you can build with the help of technical team. If the environment is PaaS environment. Within this instance, you can create new pages and new applications also. So that's how you can find primarily two instances, test and production. If you want to have one more additional instance that you can have for development purpose. Test instance is used by functional consultants, the development instance for technical consultants. Ultimately, the production will be used by client. Along with these instances, Oracle provides one more instance for consulting companies who are doing the Oracle implementations for the client, being a Oracle channel partners, implementation channel partners. For those companies, Oracle provides Vision instance. What is the difference between these three instances and Vision instance? In the three instances, you don't find any sample data. But in Vision instance, you can find the sample data. You can use this instance maybe for your learning to refer the data, how things can be created, and you can start using that instance for your learning and training purposes. Only the difference is within the Vision, we can have a sample data. In any other instance, you don't find any sample data until unless you create. All the instances by default, what we get from the Oracle is fresh instances. There won't be any sample data. There won't be any sample data. Only you will have a seeded data. In yesterday's session, we discussed we have a roles, application implementation consultant and IT security manager. Those roles Oracle is providing. If those roles are not there in the instance, you cannot use that instance also. So such kind of information Oracle provides that we can call as seeded data. In every fresh instance, you can have a seeded data, but you cannot have a sample data like suppliers, customers, bank accounts, invoices, payments. That sort of information you don't find in these fresh instances. That sample data you can find in the Vision instance. So this is what we discussed. By default, every instance, there is one user called as FA admin. FA admin. When you are going to work for any implementation, you may get access to FA admin, or else Oracle may provide separate user credentials. With that user credentials, you can log into that instance and you have to create your own user so that you can start working on the instance. If you want to create your own user, how to create, what roles need to be assigned, we discussed in the last session. So we created a user called as ERPTREE and we assigned these two roles, application implementation consultant and IT security manager roles. What purpose we assigned, we discussed, the same we verified. Application implementation consultant for the purpose of performing the setups. You can get access to FSM. From FSM, you can perform the setups. From IT security manager, you can access to security console and you can create the users and the roles. So this is what you have to understand. These two roles Oracle is providing. When you say FSM, the functional setup manager, these two roles we call as seeded roles. Since Oracle is providing these roles, we call as seeded roles. So these two seeded roles we assign to this user. From this user, we verified we are able to access to FSM, and also we have seen list of setups what can be performed. And from IT security manager, you can access to security console. Yes, in the last session we verified we were able to navigate to user creation page also. This is what we verified in the last session. We created implementation user and we verified. So before we proceed with the next step, from last two sessions, whatever we completed, any questions from anyone, please? Okay, no questions. Cool. Now, let's focus on FSM. FSM stands for Functional Setup Manager. FSM stands for Functional Setup Manager. So we discussed few points like these are the different offering, different product families we discussed. These are the different product families. Product families means financials, SCM, HCM, PPM, procurement. These all we call as product families. So within the financials, these are the different applications we call. Okay, there are different applications. The product families and these applications, as per FSM, we have some different naming convention. We call with some different names. What is that name? So when I talk about FSM, as per FSM, the product families, whatever we have, we call as offerings. The product families, we call as offerings. If you take example of financials offering, within the financials, what are the applications we have, those we call as options. Offerings and options. This is a terminology we use within the FSM. Within the functional setup manager, we can use terminology called as offerings and options. Okay, offerings and options. This is a terminology we use. So reality, we call these as a product families. These we call as a applications. But within the FSM, the naming convention is different. When you say offering, is nothing but different product families we call as different offerings. This is what we have to make a note. Each application we call as option as per FSM. This is what we have to understand about FSM terminology for product families and applications. Now, so what we can do within this FSM? The very first step when we are going to work for implementation project is you can create your own user. That already we have seen. What is the second step? Once you are ready with your user, what are the applications we are going to implement as a part of project? You may work as a finance consultant. There may be other consultants who are going to work for SCM, HCM, procurement, and different applications. So by looking at the scope of the implementation, as a part of implementation, what you are going to implement, based on that, you have to enable all those offerings and options in the fresh instance. What we have to do, if you are going to implement financials, HCM, SCM, within the fresh instance, we have to go and enable those. Okay, we have to enable whatever you are going to implement for your client. Not only offerings, within the offerings, you can have applications. If you take example of financials, yes, you are going to implement financials for your client. You have to enable financials. Within the financials, which applications you are going to implement for your client? Maybe you are going to implement these 3 applications. You have to enable only these 3 applications. So this is what we have to do as a second step. What we have to do as per our project scope. Project scope means what you are going to implement for our client as a scope of the applications. Accordingly, we have to enable offerings and options. We have to enable offerings and options. So this is what we have to do as a second step. Once you enable these offerings and options, by selecting those offerings and options, you can create implementation project. You can create implementation project. You can create implementation project. So in implementation project, what we can do? We can do the setups. So which setups you want to do, those offerings you can select into implementation project. First, you have to enable. Once you enable, those would be available. Then you can create implementation project and you can select which applications you are going to implement. Accordingly, you can select offerings and options into this implementation project. The same point I mentioned here, include or select offerings and options into project. After, why we have to select these offerings and options into this project? To perform the setups. To perform the setups. If I select financials, within the financials, if I select these applications, so what system will do is selecting in the sense, I'm going to select into my implementation project. How can I select? If those are already enabled, I can select. The first step is we have to enable. After enabling, those would be available to select into implementation project. If you don't enable financials, if you create implementation project, you cannot select financials into implementation project. It means you cannot do the finance related setups related to GL, AP, AR, CM, and FA. You cannot do the setups. That is the reason we have to include. We have to include those applications or that offerings into our implementation project. Once you select say for example, financials you are selecting into your implementation project. Once you select financials into implementation project, to implement financials across all these applications, what setups we have to do, the setup list system can create. System creates task list. Task list is nothing but list of setups what we have to complete to use financials applications for our client. So that is the meaning of task list. System creates task list. With the help of task list, you can do the setups. One system will create the task list, you can start doing the setups. You can start doing the setups that we call as perform setups. This is what we have to understand. So first step is enabling offerings and options. After creating implementation user, the very next step is from FSM, functional setup manager, enable offerings and options. Once offerings and options are enabled, create implementation project. So when you create implementation project, that is empty project you can create and you can include whatever the offerings and options are required into our project. Means what you are going to implement, you can include into that. So whatever you select, the relevant offerings and option related task list system will create. It means it will list out all the setups what we have to complete. Then you can start working on the setups. What is the purpose of implementation project here? Very simple, to perform the setups. Don't compare real implementation project with this implementation project. Real implementation, we do many activities, but as a part of real implementation, one of the activities doing the setups in the system. By representing that, they given the name as implementation project, because doing setups are part of implementation project. That is the reason we are calling as implementation project. So this is what we have to understand about FSM. What primarily we have to do within the FSM, we have to enable offerings and options, create implementation project, include offerings and options. System creates the task list, then you can perform the setups. And you can do few more activities also. First we'll see these, then we'll talk about those. So before we proceed, any questions here, please? I'll talk about how many implementation projects we have to create and other reasons and all when we create the project in the system. Any questions from anyone, please?
Yeah, I have a question actually.
Please.
So this GL, AP are under financials. So other offerings like HCM, SCM and all will have their own options, right?
Yes, there are also options. For our understanding purpose, I took only finance related options.
Correct. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, SCM already we discussed here, right? If you remember. Okay, SCM.
Okay.
Options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Questions, please.
I have one question here.
Please.
Can I do any kind of setup directly by go to the navigator?
Multiple options we have. Multiple options we have when we talk about setups. We have seen that in the yesterday session. What we did, we navigated to FSM, right? We have to click on the user. You have to click on setup and maintenance task. It will take us to one page. There we selected financials and we have seen payables, receivables, fixed assets. Do you remember?
Yes.
So we didn't create any project, right?
We have not created any project.
Yeah,
correct.
we didn't create anything yesterday, but we were able to access to those applications. That means we can do the setups without project also. There are multiple options to do the setups. Going forward, you'll understand. Okay, what are the different options? Which option will help us in what way? We will understand all those. Now let's focus on the project. So primarily we use project only. There are benefits.
So if we directly do the do the setup, that result will also reflect in the project, or it will not reflect in the project?
It doesn't reflect. It doesn't reflect directly. We can tag it into project.
Okay,
separately.
sir.
Yeah. You will see all those. Those definitely we have to understand. So there are three ways to do the setups in the instance. Okay. I'll take you through all these three options. Very primarily, we create implementation project and we do the setups. That is the reason we are discussing initially about this implementation project.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions from anyone? Fine. No questions. So now we'll go and see. Okay. So these setups within instance. Okay. So this is instance we used yesterday to create implementation user and to assign the roles. Let's connect to the same instance with the same user, and we will see how to enable offerings, options, how to create implementation project, and we'll try to understand other relevant points. Our user is ERPTREE and provide password. Fine. What is the first step?
Lakshmi
First,
sir,
please
one
go on
question.
mute.
I have one question here.
Okay, sorry, please.
Yeah, I created user as per yesterday's session, but for me, when I log in, it asks me for a business unit and organization name, but for you, it shows a different screen. Why it is so?
No, nothing it will ask.
Okay, but for me, it is asking business unit and organization name.
Which instance are you using?
Same only, dev to SaaS.
No, it doesn't ask. We will check.
Okay.
There is no scope to ask business unit something else. No, we will verify. In the end of the session, we'll check. Please remind.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine. So we are ready with the user. Now we have to enable offerings and options. We have to enable offerings and options. How to enable offerings and options in the fresh instance? Let's see that. So click on the username and click on setup and maintenance. Click on setup and maintenance. Now we are in the FSM page. This page we call as FSM. What we want to do? We want to enable offerings and options. To enable offerings and options, click on actions. Click on actions. Click on go to offerings. Okay. Click on go to offerings. I'll repeat the navigation. Once you log into the instance, you have to click on the username. Click on setup and maintenance. It will take you to this page. So in this page, go to actions. Okay, in this page, go to actions. Click on go to offerings. Click on go to offerings. So within this instance, okay, please go on mute. There is some noise. Thank you. So within this instance, these are the different offerings are available. So you may take the subscription or license for few offerings, but still Oracle will allow you to access all the offerings, but you should not use until unless you have a license or subscription we call. In case of Fusion, we call a subscription, not a license. So if you have a subscription for only financials, still you can see all these, but you should not use. If you use, Oracle will charge some penalties. Okay. So you have to pay penalties to Oracle because these instances are in the Oracle hand. Everything will be controlled by Oracle. If you are trying to use anything apart from what you subscribe, Oracle will come to know and they will charge the penalties. So even Oracle is allowing to access all the offerings. We are not supposed to use those. For whatever the offerings we have a subscription, those offerings we have to use. In the fresh instance, how to enable the offerings? Let's see that. So here is the financials offering. You can click on financials. There is icon. You click on the icon. Okay, don't click on the name. Click on icon. Once you click on this financials icon, Here it is displaying the summary of the financials. What we have inside of the financials, it is talking about. Please go on mute, Suresh. Okay, within the financials, what we have, we can see in this section. Within the financials, we have assets. It includes assets. Assets we have within the financials means fixed assets application. We have ledgers. Ledgers refers general ledger. Cash cycle, nothing but cash management. Invoices and payments, nothing but payables application. They given name directly accounts receivable. And also they given collections. And setups related to subledger accounting. To create accounting entries in any application, the subledger accounting feature also available. In any application, if you want to calculate the tax, so tax configuration, tax setups also are part of our financials itself. So that's how we have a financials. Okay, that's how we have a financials. Within the financials, we have a assets, GL, general ledger. Ledger means general ledger. Cash cycle means cash management. Invoice and payment means payables application. Accounts receivable is account receivables only. Collections, setting up subledger accounting means that we can just use this subledger accounting for accounting purpose, and tax calculation, you can do the tax configuration. These all we have as a part of financials. So here you can see this checkbox, this status is enabled. This instance we are using, in this instance already financials are enabled. If you see the status as a not enabled, if you see the status as not enabled, from where you can enable? You can click on opt-in features. You can see where you can enable so that the financials would be enabled to use for any kind of setups or to create the implementation project. Okay, so when you see the status as a not enabled, you click on opt-in features. Click on opt-in features. It will take us to the page where you can see financials. Within the financials, what are the applications we have? Those all you can see. Financials we are calling as offering. These all we are calling as options. Already we discussed. So if you look at the financials, this is already enabled. In the fresh instance, it would be disabled. It would be like this. Not only this, remaining all, wherever you have a checkboxes, all you can find as a disabled. When those are disabled, you have to enable. If you enable, those would be available to select into your implementation project. When you select those into your implementation project, you can do the setups. So this is what we have to understand. So first we have to enable. Okay, just I disabled. So that is the reason it is the process icon is taking time. See, this is how you see in the fresh instance. If you go to fresh instance, if you come to this page, this is how you can see everything as a disabled. You can notice general ledger application by default enabled. You don't have any scope to enable or disable. You don't have any option. So by default, that is enabled. If you want to use the financials application, without general ledger application, you cannot use financials. If you enable financials, automatically you will get general ledger application. You don't have any choice to say yes or no. Without general ledger, no financials applications you can use. That is a foundation for financials. And if you are going to implement payables application, payables here they are displaying the name as supplier invoice processing. Within the supplier invoice processing only means payables. We have a payables, suppliers. Payables means invoices, payments, yes, payments, and cash management. Cash management, they included within the payables itself. Supplier invoice processing includes all this. If you enable supplier invoice processing, you get all these automatically as a part of this supplier invoice processing. And if you are going to implement expense nothing but fusion expenses. Already we discussed, this is one of the application along with our core 5 applications. If you enable, you will be able to implement. You can select it into your implementation project and you can implement. and fixed assets. If you are going to implement, include it. If you are going to implement receivables application, you have to enable customer invoice processing. You have to enable this. So this is how whatever you are going to implement, you have to enable. But reality, what you can do is enable everything. No issue at all. Whatever you want to implement, you can implement it. So what you can do is reality. So you can come to this page, enable financials. Within the financials, what are the other checkboxes we have? Enable everything. No use, no issue. Okay, no issue at all. You enable financials, enable everything. You will be implementing as per the license or subscription you taken for specific applications. If you are going to implement, if you are going to enable all the options within the financials offering, there won't be any issues. So simply you can enable whatever you see within the financials. So customer invoice processing is nothing but receivables, and collections, separate application, and other whatever, these all are for business analytics. Okay, you can do the analysis. Okay, and these are the separate features, additional features. These are not options. Budgetary control and encumbrance accounting, that is a budget concept. This is intercompany concept. Okay, revenue management is a separate application again. So this is how we have a different options inside of financials. When you enable financials, enable everything. Enable everything. You can implement, you can set up what really you are going to implement. That's it. So this is how you can enable the offerings and options within the offering. Okay, within the offering, you can enable the specific options. These offerings and options, everything you can enable from FSM, Functional Setup Manager. So other point is, when we are going to implement financials, by default, you get everything. But if anything is missing, you can enable from here. See futures. Click on the futures. So by default, Oracle enables whatever required to implement financials. If anything is missing, if you are going to implement, you can enable it here. Almost all are enabled. Okay. What really required is always enabled. You can see.
Ask a question, please, just to make sure I understand.
Please.
So you're saying that in order to you have to enable for financials, you have to enable everything. What if you do not enable everything at the onset? Can you always come back and add some features later?
Yes.
Or does okay?
Yes, that is possible. At any point of time, you can come back and you can enable. That is possible.
Okay.
But if you are going to enable for the first time, there is no issue with that setup. That is the reason in the first go itself, you can enable everything. Again, you don't need to come back. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So here you can see the certain features, but whatever really required, Oracle is enabling. Mostly you don't need to enable anything. Just click on done. So we'll go back to the same offerings and options where we enable. So this is how you can enable any offering and option. Any offering and option you can enable, so that you can select into your implementation project. After selecting into your implementation project, you will be able to do the setups. Now we enabled financials. How to enable we have seen. Let's see procurement. Click on done. So within the financials, what are the applications we have seen. Let's go to procurement. Click on procurement and click on opt-in features. Just for our information purpose, let's see what are the different applications we have as a part of procurement. What are the different applications we have as a part of procurement? We'll see that. Just go to opt-in features. Yes. So here within the procurement, we have purchasing. Purchasing is the key application within the procurement. Within the procurement, one of the key application is purchasing. Along with the purchasing, you have one more application called as self-service procurement. As per EBS, we call it as iProcurement. And Oracle is providing payables also as a part of procurement. If any client wants to use payables along with the procurement, they can select supplier invoice processing also within this procurement itself. But anyway, that we have in the financials. So what else we have as a part of procurement? We have a supplier portal, separate application for client supplier interactions, and sourcing application, supplier qualifications, procurement contracts. These are the different applications we have as a part of procurement applications. So what are the procurement applications the procurement consultant is going to implement for the client? Accordingly, the procurement consultant can include all these, or else even you can include everything, no worries. They can use whatever really they are going to implement. So that's how you can find the procurement. So what are the applications we have as a part of supply chain management? Purchasing application, inventory application, order management, that we discussed in the last session. So where you can see SCM, here you don't see SCM anywhere. The reason is Oracle did not release SCM in one go. At a time they did not release. First they released procurement. Within the procurement we have purchasing application. So later they introduced inventory application. Okay, inventory application they introduced with the concept called as like product management here. As a part of product management, you have your inventory you can treat. Okay, product management means you can deal with that items, stock, inventory, the relevant information. And later they introduced order management application. If you are going to implement SCM, supply chain management, you have to select, you have to enable order management, you have to enable product management, you have to enable procurement, so that these three you can select into your implementation project so that you can implement SCM, supply chain management. If you are going to implement HCM, human capital management, that they given two sub options. So if you want to implement HCM, human capital management, you have to enable workforce deployment and workforce development. Okay, workforce deployment and workforce development. These two put together, you can say that is HCM. The same way, PPM, project portfolio management. If you are going to implement for your client PPM applications, again that is there as a two subparts. One is project execution management, other one is project financials management. Okay, project execution management and project financials management. That's how we have a two separate sub options. Okay, two separate sub options are available. So this is how you can find out different offerings as a one set or multiple sets. Okay, you have to combine, then only it will become one specific offering. So when you talk about financials, this they given as a one set of offering. So how to enable, we have seen that. Now, again select financials. Here they given related document section, expand it. They are providing few documents which talks about the what are the features are available within the financials. Within the financials, what are the different features are available. For that, they are providing the documents. The documents are available in the different formats. You can download whatever you require. PDF, HTML, Excel. The same way, apart from the features, what setups you have to do to implement financials application, those are all the setups they are giving as a task list and the tasks. Task is nothing but setup. What are the setups you do, here we can see as a task. So what list of setups you have to complete to implement financials application, the complete list Oracle is providing as a document. You can download any one of this format of document. These other documents are not useful for us to understand. Even by seeing this, as of now, you cannot understand anything. Okay, once we get into the application, you may download those documents, you can have a look, it makes sense. Now, we are not aware of anything, just take the note, later you can download and you can have a look, but really not required. If you want to see, don't see now, you see later. That's it. So this is what we have to understand about offerings and options. Any questions on offerings and options, please?
Actually, on the right hand side panel, there was something called features, not features. Other, can you once go to inside financials next to the enable button, next to the enable flag?
Those all are not useful. That is the reason I was not talking about it. I'll
Okay,
go,
okay,
go there.
okay.
Yeah. See, when we go through these different pages, you come to know many things. Okay, which is required, I'm explaining. Which I'm not explaining, that won't harm you anywhere. So you will be able to keep going. Show me where.
Yeah, this one. Features, there is an edit kind of
Yes,
option there.
I
was one.
explained, right? I explained.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
clicked on this, right?
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Apart from that, here you can see features. If you click on done,
Okay.
it will come out. Here you can see new features. Those are
Okay.
nothing but whenever Oracle will update this instance
Oh, okay.
by applying the patches, what they are adding, that list you can see in this. That's it. Okay. So I'll explain about that. When we talk about releases, there I'll talk about this part. Yeah. So any questions on this offerings and options, please? In the every fresh instance, you have to follow this process to enable offerings and options. When we are going to enable, you no need to enable very carefully, not required. Just go and enable everything, no worries. If you enable everything, nothing is going to happen. You have to set up, then only you can use those. Anyway, you won't set up, since those you are not going to implement for your client. That's all. If you don't want to enable, okay, don't enable, since you are not going to implement. That's all. Okay. So that's all about enabling offerings and options. The next step is implementation project. What purpose we have to create the implementation project? To complete the setups. To complete the setups, we have to create the implementation project. Okay, to complete the setups, you have to create the implementation project. So when you talk about completing the setups, okay, so what setups we have to complete for each and every application, we will discuss very detailed level once we start doing the setups. For now, we are going to create implementation project. We are going to add, or we are going to include financials and what are the other offerings we require into our implementation project. Let's see how to create implementation project. Go to instance, click on done. We are in the offerings page, click on done. Now we are in the FSM page, FSM, functional setup manager. So click on task list. It contains multiple tasks. That is the reason this you can call as a task list or task pan. So click on this task list. It will display a list of tasks which are available inside of it. It is kind of notepad kind of icon. You click on this, it will be expanded. You can see the tasks. Now, what do you want to do? You want to create the implementation project. Here is the task. In the Fusion, everything what we do, you call as a task, T-A-S-K, task. Click on manage implementation projects. Click on this manage implementation projects. So if you are working on the fresh instance, you don't see these projects. Here, many projects are there because this is a practice instance. We are creating for practice purpose. In case of fresh instance, if you come to this page, you will see like this, empty, blank. You will create the first project. Now the question is, as a part of real implementation, how many implementation projects you have to create? By default, one is enough. If you want to create for each country separate, yes, you can create it. So if you are going to do the implementation for 10 countries, yes, you can create one implementation project. From one implementation project, you can do the setups for all the countries possible. But there will be few challenges. You have to be very careful. If you don't want to get into that issues of creating one project, doing the setups for multiple countries, By mistake, you may perform setups for one country instead of another country. If you think in that way, for each country, you can create separate implementation project. Same instance, you can create separate implementation projects and you can do the setups without any challenges. So you choose the project called as India implementation project. You do all the India company related setups. How you are doing the business in India, accordingly you do the setups. If you want to do the setups for US, you can select US implementation project. You can get into that project and you can keep working on US related, business related setups. If you create one project, all the times you may not focus, you are working for which country, by mistake, the setup what is related to India, you may perform for US also. That kind of chances are there. That is the reason you may create separate. If you think you are okay to understand those, you will not have some challenges, you have experience doing these all setups, then you can create single project and you can do the setups for multiple countries. Okay, most of the cases we create one implementation project and we do setups for multiple countries. You no need to create separate projects for each and every country. Okay, that point you can make a note. So you will be, once you start doing the setups, you'll come to know all those points where you have to be very careful when you do the multiple country related setups from one implementation project. Yep. Now, to create the implementation project, click on create icon. To create the implementation project, click on create icon. Fine. So by default, system is taking the implementation project name as implementation project 30. You can remove that number and you can include your company name, client name. And here I am, for our testing, I am taking ERPTREE. Okay, or else let me take some other name. So I'll take name called as American Express, Amex. Amex implementation project. Say we are going to implement for Amex and we are creating implementation project with the same name. So once you provide the name, use tab, automatically system will update the same name. I think that name is already there in the system. So let's create name as company Max. So Max, once you give the name and tab out, the same name system is defaulting in the code as well as description also. Okay, the name Max is defaulting for code and description. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to create implementation project. We are just creating implementation project means we not yet started doing the setups. That is the reason this project status is not started. And we are creating this implementation project from the user called as ERPTREE. That is the reason the same user is defaulting here. This project will get assigned to this user. You no need to assign the project to any user. You can keep that as a blank also. Okay, you can keep that as a blank also. So if you want to assign to any other user, you can click on search and you can assign to another user. Anything you can do. Okay, you can keep the assignment as a blank or let system assign to the same user from which user you are creating. If you want to change, you can go and search and select another user and select here so that this project will be assigned to that user. And so we are creating the project today. By default, system is taking the start date as a today's date. When you are going to finish this project, what does it mean by implementation project? Here, what we are creating, this is related to setups. Okay, instead of calling it as a setup project, we are calling as implementation project. Reason, setups are part of implementation project. That is the reason the name they given. Now you may provide the tentative finish date. You may complete, may not complete by the date. So, but you can provide some tentative date. You may plan to complete all these setups. So within the week time. Or by this month 29th, you are planning to complete all the setups in the system related to finance. So you can give the date, but we don't need to worry about these dates. After this date also, system will allow us to do the setups. This is just for information purpose. So how we are creating the project, we are giving the implementation project name, the same name system is copying to this code and description fields. And by default project status is not started. It means we not yet started doing the setups. Okay, we're not yet ready with the project. That means we cannot do any setups. That is the reason system is taking status as not started. Once you create the implementation project, you can do the setups. So when we are going to do the setups, you can change the status. And it is by default is assigning to the current user, from which user you are creating the project. Start date, today's date is taking, and you can provide tentative finish date. Now we have two options. One is you can click on next, so that system will display all the offerings and options which are already enabled in this instance. Those you can include into your project. If you don't want to select offerings and options now, if you want to select offerings and options later point of time, simply you can click on save and open project. System will create the blank project. Then you can add the required offerings and options into that implementation project. We will test both. Okay, first we will proceed with the next option. So these are the details. Okay, we are giving for our project. Click on next. Click on next. What happened to this? The implementation project already exists. How it is. Okay, fine. Now it's okay. Just click on next. So click on next. It will take us to the next page. Within the page, you can find out all the offerings and options which are already enabled in this instance. Okay, what are the offerings and options already enabled? All you can see, what are the offerings and options we are going to implement for your client, those all you can include into this project. Okay, those all you can include into this project. That's what you can do. Just wait for a moment. So, yeah. Now you can see what are the offerings you see here. These all are already enabled in our instance. That is the reason it is showing. You can see financials here. If you don't enable financials as a part of offerings and options, you don't see financials here. When you don't see these financials here, you cannot include these financials into your implementation project. That won't be possible. So how to include these financials into our project? Here is a checkbox called as include. It will expand and it will display the applications what we have inside of financials. Yes, supplier invoice processing means payables, we need it. Expense, separate application we will work, that is employee expenses. Fixed assets, yes, we are going to implement. The receivables, this is just whatever you want to include, you can include. Just include everything what available here. When you implement, you can implement whatever you want to implement. You can include everything. These are analytics. You can do the data analysis related to these reports, these applications. Done. So this is how you can include. And if you want to include any other offering into our implementation project, you can include same process. So you want to include procurement also. So procurement also you want to include, enable procurement. I mean to say include procurement. So within the procurement, what you need, everything you can include. No worries. Even if you are not going to implement procurement, you can just include for our testing purpose. So in case of real implementation, you may not include. Done. So this is how you can include offerings and options. Now click on save and open project. When you click on save and open project, what system will do is within this financials offering, what are the different options you included into this project? For all those applications, it will create task list. Say within our financials, we have one of the option called as payables. If you want to use payables for your client, what setups need to be completed? Now system will create the list of setups. It will display within our project. From our project, you will be able to do all those setups. In the same way for every application, whatever we included across all the offerings, what are the different applications we have to implement all those applications, system will create the task list. Task list is nothing but list of setups. When it will create the list of setups, it will group tasks applications wise. Okay, it won't mess everything. So it will create separate folder for payables. It will create separate folder for receivables. It will create separate folder for each and every application, so that when we are going to perform the setups, it would be very easy for us. Okay. So wait for a moment, it takes time because it has to generate multiple tasks based on what we included into our project. It may take a couple of minutes. Say it won't take more than 1 or 2 minutes from now. Let's wait.
What is the Fusion Accounting Hub?
A Fusion Accounting Hub is another offering. Okay, say for example, you are using some manufacturing applications, industry specific manufacturing applications, or else you are using insurance application. So within the insurance application, you are not creating accounting, or else you have a raw data, or else you have a partially accounted data. That data you want to bring into Fusion General Ledger application for report generation. So by using FAH, Fusion Accounting Hub, you can map that application with Oracle Fusion, the third-party applications, the insurance application or loan management application or some industry-specific applications. You can connect with the Fusion and how accounting need to be generated for those transactions when the data is coming into Fusion, that you can set up by using Fusion Accounting Hub. Accounting Hub, that is a hub to create accounting if any data is coming from some third-party applications to Fusion application.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So now you can see the implementation project is ready. This is our implementation project. This is the name, this is the code, this is the status, not started. Assignment, it is assigned to ERPTREE user, and this is the start date and this is the finish date. This is the basic information. Anytime you can change except code. You can click on edit. You can change. You can set the status. Say you started working on this project. It means you started doing the setups. You can set the status as in progress. Okay, any other details you can change except code. So we selected 2 offerings into our implementation project. The same 2 it is displaying here. Let's delete procurement. We don't need it. Okay, select procurement, say remove. We don't need. Later we will add it. We will be working on procurement, and you say procurement on purchasing application. At that time we will add once again. So anytime you can add anything into project. Now we don't need it. I remove. Now we have financials. So when we are creating this implementation project, we included financials. Within the financials, we included different options. Yes, for each option, system creates separate folder that you can see. Expand it, it created. If you want to implement payables, this is the folder you have to use. Inside of this folder, you will find payable related setups. If you are going to implement expense application, this is the folder. Define expense configuration. To implement fixed assets, this is a folder. To implement receivables, this is a folder. So that's how for every application, system created folder, and few folders, additional folders it creates. Those are may not related to specific application. Those might be some common setups. See here, common financial configuration. If you want to use financials, you have to do some common setups apart from application specific setups. So this is how we have a different folders. So wherever you see the folder, that you can call as a task list. That means folder contains multiple tasks. One folder may contains another folder also. Again, that folder also we call as a task list. Let's see that. Okay. So define invoicing and payment configuration means payables. I will expand the payables. Just expand. So see, within the define invoicing and payment configuration, we have many subfolders. Many subfolders we have. So these also we call as a task list. You place the cursor on the folder icon, you see the pop-up as a task list. It means inside we have a multiple tasks. Inside we have a multiple tasks. I'm going to expand one more subfolder. So inside of this define payables, we don't have any subfolder. So what you see here without folder, those we call as tasks. So this is one task, this is the one task, this is the one task. These all are the different tasks. If you want to do any setups, we can do the setups with these tasks only. With the help of these tasks, you can perform the setups. Say I want to create payment terms in the payables. We will discuss what does it mean by payment terms when we work on the payables. We'll discuss just for information purpose. So you want to create the payment terms in the payables application. If you want to create, you have to go to this task, click on go to task icon. The arrow icon we call as go to task. Now we are in the manage payment terms pages, manage payment terms page, where you can see many payment terms. If you want to create, you can click on this plus icon. You can create now. We'll create. When we have to create, we will create. For now, just for our understanding purpose, I'm taking through this navigation. That's all. So this is how for any application, any setups you can do from the project. All the relevant setups are grouped with a different folders. In each application, you can have a multiple folders based on the classification of setups. So if you take example of payables, invoice related separate setups, payment related separate setups, that's how the setups are grouped and you can see in the respective folders. Okay, done. If you want to set up fixed assets, you just expand fixed assets folder. Within the fixed assets, there are no subfolders, you see there. All are direct tasks, almost all are direct. Here we have a manage depreciation rules, that is a separate folder inside of the fixed assets. Many tasks directly displayed. Okay, you can go and do all these setups. Which setup is mandatory, which setup is optional, which setup you have to complete as a mandatory. For that they given the star mark. See, star marks indicates the setup is required. If you don't complete the setup, you cannot use the fixed assets. Okay, if you don't complete the setups, you cannot use the fixed assets. That's how it works. So these are the points we have to understand when you talk about creating implementation project. Okay, we created implementation project now. So not only offering the entire offering, you can add separate options also here. Now I want to add procurement, I can add from here, or else I want to add payables. Of course, payables we have already within the financials. Just for our understanding, let's see how to add specific payables within the project. What is the name for payables? Define invoicing and payment configuration. Collapse this. If you select financials and if you add, it will be added into financials. You want to add separately into project, then don't select this financials. Here you click, again click, it will be deselected. Now financials are not selected. So whatever you are going to add, it will be added into this project next to financials, not inside of the financials, even that is related to financials. Click on add. I want to add payables into our project. Yes, it is there already in our project, but for our understanding how to add specific option, payables is one option. So it is not offering. Since it is option, you have to select task list. So what do you want to add? Payables. For payables, what is the name they given? Define invoicing and payment configuration. Search. Here is the task list. Define invoicing and payment configuration. You select Click on apply. So within this, we will have a very limited setup. So it is adding immediately. And click on done. That's how
Let me
simply
say,
you can add
what is the
specific
difference? What is the
option.
difference between task list and task?
Task list contains multiple tasks. Okay, like batch and individual. Okay.
But when we were adding, there was a drop down saying task list and another drop down, it was a task.
Yeah, we can add task also. We are going to see that next. Okay. So within the project, you can see we added offering and payables is offering or option. Payables is offering or option. What is that?
Option.
Option.
So that is the reason in the drop down, they are not providing name as option. Instead of option, they are giving for search task list. That is the reason we selected task list. Now expand these payables. And further, you can expand any one of the other folder. So within this, we have multiple tasks. If you want to add specific task to our project, yes, you can do it. So we have a task called as manage payment terms. I want to add only this task to my project. Yes, I can do it. Collapse this. You deselect here. You click here, everything is selected. Again, click in this corner. Everything are deselected. Now click on add. You give the name as a task. If you try with the task list, you cannot find the task. Task list only you can find with the task list. Task list can be option or inside of the option that could be subfolder. Now select tasks. Now task name is manage payment terms. Search. Yes, we are able to see that. So manage payment terms. Select, click on apply. This will be added into our project. Added, you can see here. Now click on done. So this is how you can add specific offering into project. If not specific offering, specific option you can add. If not option, within the option, you can add specific task also. So at any point of time, you can add offering or option or task into implementation project. By doing these financials, if you do all the finance related setups, and if you delete this implementation project, nothing will happen. Your setups will remain as it is in the database. So what project is doing, it is helping us to navigate to those pages to create something. That's how this is helping us to navigate and create. After doing all this, say you did all the payable setups, you deleted project, you don't need to worry about it. Your setups will be in the database. If you want to see those setups, create one more project, go to the same task and check what are the setups you created from other project. System point of view, so from where you are creating doesn't matter. So you are creating the projects for your convenience to do the setups and to move those setups from one instance to another instance, one instance to another instance. For that purpose, we are creating implementation project. Okay. So if you delete the project, nothing will happen to your setups, which already you completed through that project. Those will get stored in the database and you can see those setups from another project by creating new project. Questions, please. Any questions here, please?
The task list and task is it like options and forms in hardware ERP? Is it like that?
Submenu and function.
Submenus and functions. Okay.
Here task is equal to function in EBS.
Okay.
Yeah. So any other questions about this implementation project creation, please?
Yeah, I have one question here. It
Please.
is assigned to this ERP tree. Can we assign to the multiple people here?
So project you can assign to one resource only, but this offering you can assign to multiple, this option you can assign to multiple, this task also you can assign to multiple. Once they start working on it, you can update the status also. These points we will see in the tomorrow session. How to assign offerings, options, task list to the consultants, how they can start updating the status based on the progress of the setups, what they are doing in this project, how that information will roll up to the project level, how it will impact the project progress. These all points we'll see in the tomorrow session.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's almost 9:50. We're done for today. If you have any questions, you can stay back. We will discuss. If no questions, we'll connect tomorrow same time. Thank you all. Any questions, please? So any questions from last two sessions or from today's session? If not from these three sessions, if you have any questions about this course, please let me know.
I have just one question.
Yep.
Yeah, we have say different options like this AR, AP, general ledger. Suppose we have 4 to 5 business users and say one business user must access only AR, one business user must access.
One second. So that happens once you implement the applications. Now we are working as a consultant. Whatever we are discussing here, these are not related to any business users.
Okay.
Once you complete payable setups, then business users will come into the picture to use the payables application. So we will give the different access to those business users. One user may create only invoices. One user may create only payments. One user may create only suppliers. One user may create only bank accounts. One user may create supplier and invoices. One user may create payments and bank accounts. How they need access, accordingly we set up. We will come to know all those. Now that is not related to these points. This is related to implementation. We are going to implement. Once implemented, the users will start using. There we set those privileges.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? No questions. So great. Okay. So that's all for today. We'll try to complete the setups from your end also. So we created user, we created implementation project. We have seen how to enable offerings and options so that upcoming sessions you will find more comfortable. Try to complete whatever I am completing from my end. The same if you complete from your end, it will be very easy. Without completing, if you are attending the classes, by seeing you can understand, you may feel comfortable. Once you start working on the instance, that will become little difficult. Okay, so try to complete parallel, in the sense, if I complete something today, you also try to complete today itself. You may not complete during the class itself. After class, you can just start working on the same. Try to create multiple. You may create two or three users. You may create 2 or 3 implementation processes. Since you are practicing, try to spend more time to create multiple. That's how you can gain good hands-on experience. So any questions from anyone, please? If no questions, we can wind up. Okay, no questions. Thank you all. See you tomorrow.